Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well.
Indeed, we do.
Make sure you subscribe to all three channels, Evolutionary, EEARTS, and also at Heart's Home. And so let's start with some snow, a ton of snow. Yosemite National Parks closed indefinitely after being buried in decades-old snowfall record. Up to 15 feet deep of snow after recent storms. Yeah, there's more to those houses than those little peaks and that chimney. Is that a chimney? What is that? Anyway, they're deep. They are very deep. I mean, neck deep? It seems even more.
Right, so those are definitely not houses for little gnomes.
No, they're not houses for little gnomes. Oh, she's so cute at times, yes. As you can see here, there's one gentleman here that says, Scott Getterman. He's been a spokesperson for Yosemite and a ranger for 27 years. This is the most snow I have seen in my life. Okay, a ranger for 27 years. This is the most snow I've seen in my life, Al Gore. What do you think about that, Al? Happy first day of meteorological spring, guys. Yay.
I would be curious to see if that stuff actually melts, though.
Or does it go on fire? Again, what's in our water? Gosh, when people tell me now, when we say you got water filtration, yeah, I got this type of filter, I automatically feel like it's not enough. We have a reverse osmosis and a distiller. It almost feels like we got to run it through like 6 different processes before you should really even think about drinking it, unfortunately.
I know. I mean, it's just so sad that things are that way, but that's kind of where we're headed. It's sad.
Now, this is from UC Berkeley's Central Sierra Snow Lab. They had 36 inches of new snow over the last 3-day total. 87.2 inches. 7-day total, 141.9 inches. Wow. Bigfoot's going to be cutting new trails through the Sierra Nevada.
Well, he's probably going to build giant Bigfoot snowmen.
Yeah, 87 inches, that's enough to almost cover up a Bigfoot when you think about it. Now this, all kidding aside, let's just listen to her. This is Lake Arrowhead resident Michelle Calkins.
Hi, my name California, in San Bernardino County. The communities of Crestline, Lake Arrowhead, and Running Springs are screaming and begging for help from our state. Our county declared a state of emergency, but doesn't seem to still be taking it serious. People are trapped in their homes and have been for now more than 5 days because the streets are not plowed. The snow has now accumulated up to about 9 feet. On those streets, people cannot walk anymore. There are moms, personal friends who are low on formula that will only last them a day or 2 left. They have been calling the emergency hotline and no one is taking us serious. Please, we are begging you, send help. We need help. This is not a joke. We are not Mammoth. We are not Tahoe. We are not Big Bear. We are not a city. We are unincorporated and we need help. People are trapped in their homes. They cannot get medicine, heart medicine, insulin. The stories could go on and on. Please, we beg you. We need help from the state. Are you listening?
Okay, so yeah, absolutely. You can feel the stress in her voice, as this says. You certainly can. And, again, anywhere you go, there's always going to be issues. Always going to be issues. Now, good side of all this snow and all this rain is obviously, I'll bring up the drought monitor. I forgot to do that recently. As we look at some heavy, wet snow in North Scottsdale, Arizona. But, overall, the biggest thing that's been pressing on us in the last handful of years, for sure, has been the drought and the wildfires. So hopefully this will have a tampering effect. But then again, we understand the weather is able to be manipulated. It's just a fact. It's been documented. There's declassified documentation. We've covered this millions of times. So, it's always the extremes. It's never a nice, perfect, right in the middle, exactly what you need. But over here, as we see, record book Oh yeah, right now you're looking at number 2 over at Flagstaff Pulliam Airport, and over at Belmont Northwest NWS office, you're looking at number 1 as far as the amount of snowfall. So yeah, it's been an incredible year, and it's really such a tale of diversity this winter.
And I just wanted to step back and go back to that nice lady who's really begging for help, and say right now the world is semi-okay where, government can step in and help, and they can bring helicopters and bikes and bring in things to assist people and save lives. But she's unable to get help from her government in this day and age. What do we think is going to happen when things start to crinkle down? She does bring up really valid points. Formula. We should all be ready to not have the government's help at any moment, because as you can see, it doesn't take much for them to just, I can't help you. They don't care about babies being hungry. They don't care about you being uncomfortable or not having medicines that you need. Yeah, this is why we really have to watch out for ourselves, each other.
Yeah, and when we look at this, we see, the Dust Bowl that we were getting forecasted again by so many of the experts. It looks like it's gone. Yeah, we still do have some serious deep, like brownish reds there and reds. But you're not looking at anything close to what we had before. So when we look at a lot of these states, like, Arkansas and Missouri were actually, they were getting pretty dark and pretty dry, and they're totally gone now. When we look east of the Mississippi, there's very little as far as drought conditions going on. So how quickly it can change. That's the point. Everything in this planet can change really quickly. Look at Arizona. There's plenty of water now. The water might not be the best quality, and again, this goes for anywhere, especially if we're talking now the Northeast. We're concerned, obviously, because of East Palestine and that train derailment, and it's not just that. That's just kind of a canary in the coal mine, even though it is perhaps a Chernobyl style event. It's the system. Every day, all day, there's all sorts of toxic things being moved all around the country. And you have corporations just dumping toxins into waterways as a matter of course. So many of them have been sued. So many of them have paid out millions, if not billions of dollars. If you've ever seen what's been done by the evils of Monsanto, for instance, especially with some of the lawsuits that emerged in Latin America and birth defects, I mean, it's just horrendous. It's just horrendous, the toxicity of this planet. And that's why it's so it's almost laughable to think that corporations are all of a sudden going to truly care about the climate. They don't care about the climate, not one little bit. These are all just salespeople, pushing their agendas. But, at least we are seeing a major lightening of drought situation. Now, what I'm really concerned with is all the weight in California from all that snowpack and all the water. And that might sound silly to somebody that doesn't understand, but yeah, there's studies done that show that absolutely heavy-duty, record-setting wet season can set things up for major quake activity. Astrologically looking too, Joni Petrie, one of our favorites, she's a Vedic astrologer. She was talking about a lot of dangers that we'll be facing perhaps in March. March can be a little bit, astrologically speaking, on the dangerous side.
Mm-hmm. And she was talking about one of those nakshatras, Bharani, and that one really is all about helping people go from one world to the next. A lot of pediatricians who help give birth, they have Bharani, and people who are help the sick ones cross over, they can have that Bharani nakshatra. So you can see it's about giving birth, changing worlds, big change.
Absolutely. As we see 20 inches of snow in Majorca. Now, well, what's the big deal there? This is where it is. This is a beautiful island here in the Mediterranean that, can get snow, but 20 inches of snow is extreme rarity. It's known for sun, sea, and sand, right? Look at this. It's a winter wonderland right now. Beautiful winter wonderland in the Mediterranean. And then we got the flood side of things. As you see, floods in Brazil's São Paulo killed at least 36 people after a major storm hit. The floods ongoing all around the globe. Floods. We should do, and I'm thinking we probably will do, we could touch again on the universal nature of the flood stories. Many people are familiar with Noah and the flood. That's just one. Every single culture around the world has a flood story very, very similar. It is interesting, too, that they always blame it on the gods and say, the gods decided they're going to wipe out all of humans, and then they stop and just leave a few and let humanity repopulate all over again. Signs everywhere. There's signs, right? There's sign right here. 26,000 people were evacuated. 26,000. Yeah, that's an interesting number. Again, it's like a great year, right? In precession of the equinox I think it's 25,920 if I remember right. 26,000, somewhere between a 24,000 and a 26,000 year great cycle that occurs. This is, again, Malaysia. Floods hit and tons of people evacuated. And again, this is also tons of crops lost. Over here, this is definitely a sign that we could have an eruption coming at Machin Volcano. You have increased soil temperature. That's kind of a dead giveaway. And meanwhile, we have new activity at 5 volcanoes this week, 18 ongoing eruptions. And we have a South American nation, Argentina, hit by a massive blackout. Outages covered more than half of Argentina after a fire disrupted a major power line. Oh, yeah, nothing to see here. It's just, just a coincidence. There's nothing but coincidences. And then one of our family members was like, wow, these look like 2 ships up in Mount Shasta. One of our dear family members up in beautiful Mount Shasta, gorgeous area. It is one of my favorite areas. I mean, as far as everywhere that Cindy and I have traveled coast to coast, depending on, different governance, different times, we would definitely love to be at least spending part of the year in Mount Shasta. It's just gorgeous. But these 2 bright lights weren't motherships per se.
Right. It was pretty amazing. He sent us a short video clip. And it looked to be the planets in the sky. But in those videos, it was really interesting. There was also, I should have sent them to Mike's email so we could look at them, because it looked like there was maybe for another shooting stars or something going through right between the lights. It was really, really a neat little clip.
Well, yeah, this was a conjunction of Jupiter and Venus, which was really cool. And I meant to try to cover this yesterday, but we were just so crazy busy, as you see right here. They're going to come in for a little celestial kiss. Well, they did that last night, as close as 0.52 of a degree. Look at that. Don't worry, they're not going to hit. But there have been collisions in the past. Absolutely. And what we've shared with you guys, too, and we're going to touch more and revisit some things that we've shared, as there's always new people coming in. But the asteroid belt that we see between Mars and Jupiter, that contains debris from what was Tiamat, which is now Earth.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, right now is a really good time for new relationships. It's a really good time if you're going to invest, if you're going to make life changes. So ultimately, this is a time to manifest, get that information written down on paper, say your prayers, do your mantras. It's a great time for expansion.
Absolutely. Maybe time for that what do they call it? Teotihuacanaki, the end of the world as we know it, new home, so to speak. Okay, but we've done all this before. Gunung Padang in Indonesia. Now, we could look at this and say, okay, well, that obviously looks like that was an old pyramid. And yeah, all over the world, we have littered old pyramid type sites, megalithic sites. This is the location, as you could see right here. Now, it's fascinating. When Cindy was asking the guides a long time ago about, who were the first humanoid beings on Earth, what she was seeing was blue people. And she was seeing people related to the water. And, these are the ones that we would call the Muans or Mu/Lemuria. And, again, it was more of it was an extraterrestrial outpost, basically, is what it was on Earth. And again, you got to realize, too, we've never been alone. Never, ever, ever been alone here. It's just a matter of what age we're in is the beings that we are primarily exposed to and how much knowledge we have of the beings. So this is a fascinating site. And, archaeologists, thought, well, it's curious, but they never really look further. You got to realize, too, when we have like the Smithsonian, when we have modern academia, when you get up to the top level, it's always about, we need a grant to go investigate this. Well, here's what you're going to find, basically. They're going to tell you what you're going to find, even if you find stuff that makes you think, it's not the story they want us to tell the public. Well, because they are the global control team. They're part of the global narrative team. And they probably rationalize it by saying, humanity can't understand the truth. We don't want them understanding the truth because it's going to be too much for them to handle. That old Jack Nicholson line, you can't handle the truth. What have I told you? Your world is run by extraterrestrials that can snuff it out at any second. Can you handle that truth? Because that is what has happened time and time again. And at times, yes, there's literal battles over our head. And then there's remnants of those battles. Now, these rocks are naturally formed by, a volcanic process, so to speak. But they were actually brought to this location, and these are pretty dense for the most part. They weigh hundreds of pounds, between 500 and 1,000 pounds. Many of them weigh in that range. And to move all these to this location, now this is just the surface. What's fascinating is as they've been able to go deeper with ground-penetrating radar and doing core samples, they discovered that, what happened, again, the world has gone through such catastrophic devastation from time to time. And we had one of our semi-regulars say, you don't take into account any of, the plate movements or anything. Well, yeah, all that does happen. But what you have to understand is, again, there is technology in play that decides, when to amplify things and when to tone things down as well, when we were talking about the beings that we would call the controllers, the true controllers.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And if we were simply taught from such a young age the truth about everything, we wouldn't be in a position where the controllers think that they can't tell us because we're just not ready or we're not mature. Well, if you tell the truth from the start, then it's never ever a problem. Well, if you don't tell the truth from the start, you're kind of putting yourself in a position to manipulate those people who are believing you. So it's just more to add to the controllers and how they do things, and I do believe the planet does things on her own, but so much of this I feel is, the things that are happening are just too targeted to consider, it's just Earth. No, they're causing mayhem. They're doing things and spreading, a lot of chaos with these targeted things. So it's just a big game of manipulation right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we are in harmony with the earth, we understand what's happening. We could feel it. We know it. So we would, in mass, just like birds, can flock together in the tens of thousands and leave an area. The same thing you'll have with all of a sudden, before some sort of eruption or major quake, you'll find all the animals are just saying, all right, we're out of here. See you guys. And then it happens. We would be the same way. We would know, okay, it's time to leave this island on Indonesia because a volcano is going to go, and everybody would pack up and go because they'd get the signal. We don't get the signal in this world because we're on big FARMA, and because there's signals from all the towers around us constantly. And because we've also, kind of been told that that side of us doesn't even exist in the first place. Oh, that's just silly superstition. No, we again, our bodies are made of the same stuff as the animals, and the other creatures of the earth. We can resonate with the earth. We can know when there's going to be major cataclysms, and we can prepare. But what happens in these times of changeover, when the controllers understand they're no longer going to be able to control the masses, they would just as soon try to hang on to what they can. You could think of them as cattle ranchers, and we're the cattle. Again, if you're going to be at a loss, if you are facing something, maybe they're going to come and take your farm, and so you decide, what, I'm going to take them all in for processing. Well, that's basically kind of how they view it. Okay, they're going to cull the herd, they're going to process what they can, salvage what they can, and they'll come back around in another 5,000-6,000 years to do it all over again. This is kind of the ongoing situation. When we look at this is an artist's impression of what it looked like. Again, the same thing is what we're finding. Okay, at the top stones, we see that they're from maybe 500 BC, something like that. As he goes down deeper and deeper, they kept coming into areas that had much more antiquity to them, going back to 10 to 12,000, going back to the time of the last Younger Dryas cataclysm that we had. And then going down towards the base, they found that this was even originally starting to be constructed like 26,000 years ago. There's that number again. Yeah, I mean, a full whole precession of the equinoxes ago. Here, we come around to these times. Absolutely, there are natural components. The sun's going to do its thing. They want you terrified of the sun. I mean, haven't you guys ever, and I'm sure you have, you've had many, many commercials tell you, make sure you lather up before going to the beach. Oh, yeah, but those chemicals are going to end up causing the big C, that you're slathering on the body there. If we just trust blindly, the sheep end up going to the processing plant. And that's the reality of what we have. This clearly shows, too, again, this is the same thing. The farther down we go, the more advanced the society seems to be. But at the same time, the society's choosing to live in harmony with the earth. They're not choosing to create the type of structures we have now. And they don't live in a way that's toxic to the planet. They live in a very symbiotic nature to the planet. So, again, they don't want all this coming out. And again, when we look to academia, when we look to the science, and even the ones that might point out some flaws in the science, and I'll use this correlation with the Bible, whereas you have, say, the Protestant reformers saying this and that we don't agree with, we're breaking away from the church, we're going to do our own thing. This group's going to be Lutheran, these are going to be Methodists, these are going to be Anglicans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they're still taking from the same book. The book didn't really change. Whether you include the pseudepigrapha or not, you still have basically, 4 Gospels where there were 200 plus Gospels. So it's the same thing here. Now you'll have breakaway people that are saying, yes, the science is flawed, and it's the sun, it's not carbon emissions. Well, yeah, it's not really carbon emissions, and it is the sun, but it's not all the sun. If we say it's all the sun, then what about the technology? Because again, we could extend this video out for another half hour and just cover every single, well, no, not even every single, but we could start to cover a ton of declassified weather documentation and when it was used. Weather modification, geoengineering is a reality, and it's been used on humanity so many times. So that's all a fact. We're circled in satellites. And we could talk about the Black Knight and the White Knight satellites, which, again, these are structures that are circling the planet. These are things that are circling the planet that are ancient. And they're satellites of a sort. They're constructed by somebody, but not us. And then you look to all around the world. It's the same stories. They're the same quote-unquote myths. I have way more faith in the myths than the science.
And definitely. And there's ways. This earth is created to be one. It's created for her to talk to her inhabitants. When it comes to weather modification and technology, there's very natural ways to bring in rain, bring in sun. Just think back to our indigenous ancestors, and what do you think a rain dance was? They knew how to work with the whole system in such a symbiotic way. I would love to go back to that time.
And we will. It's not too far away in the bigger scheme of the things. So this is just one more example of obvious traces of a civilization that was very advanced and chose to live simply and chose to live in harmony with the earth in a natural way. And of course, the power structure doesn't want you to understand it. It doesn't want you to understand your own history, because when we're out of these times, just like what you find in myths all around the world, as we were talking also about the Greek myths, about how in the Golden Age, man is like the gods. Yes, same legends we find in ancient China. Man in the Golden Age is like the gods. And actually, in ancient China, it even says that the gods, because they didn't want man to be on equal footing, put blockages in the chakras of humans to keep humans from functioning at the same level. Oh, that's an interesting little myth, is it not? Yes. And they are always doing this with trauma, to put trauma in will bring about blockages, because again, if we get hit with emotional situation that we can't process, whether it's some sort of cataclysm, a global war, horrible things that are happening, those all cause blockages in us, in our emotional energy body, which then slows down the flow of energy and allows disease to set in. It's the system. The system is the one thing that needs to be changed, is again the entire system on this planet. And it will. And again, they know that. And like spoiled kids, not like this little guy. This little guy seems awful happy and he's showing some love where it's deserved and appreciated. They will go ahead and say, okay, we can't play anymore. We can't control the game. Then we're going to kick the fort over. We're going to knock the pieces off the playing board. And that's exactly what we see with this megalithic structure.
And this is just such a pure form of unconditional love. This lets off so many good hormones. You could almost sit here and have a little mini healing for yourself, because when we are traumatized as children, what that does is splits our energy and it splits our manifestation ability. So if you're wanting to become just a little more whole, sit and look at these guys for just a little bit and hold that happiness of that child. Imagine how happy that child is and how content that little moo-moo is. And use that energy to help raise yourself up today and work on manifesting stuff.
Absolutely. As always, guys, thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Much love, God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.